Come on, get in. Sorry, we barely have room for one.
You go ahead. I'm
actually not, he thinks. I just dislike delinquents.
I'm sure you will feel right at home. I'll keep watch.
You see a youngish man bleaching the tips of his hair with a toothbrush. He puts the toothbrush down and extends his hand in greeting.
Hello, I'm Andre. It's a pleasure to meet you.
His grip is strong, sweaty, and warm. He's trying to project and inspire confidence.
This is my posse, Noid.
The young man with earrings looks at you suspiciously.
And Egghead.
Egg!
Together with a Cell Burger, who's out there right now, doing some seriously progressive sonic experimentation, we like to think of ourselves as music venue organisers. We have many in the pipeline, officer. You see, we've been all over Jamrock North, prospecting for real estate to establish a new venue in.
Also for talent.
Yeah, thank you, Egghead. And while there is no shortage of raw, unfettered talent spinning tapes in Jamrock, we've had rotten luck with the real estate part.
Place is a shithole.
I apologise for my friend Noid's potty mouth. I realise this is not how you speak to a police officer. He has authority issues. Ah, so you've met her. Good, good. Yeah, it's a matter of occupied ecclesiastical property. I bet you've noticed the derelict hive of narcomania on the coast.
An attempt to pander to your perceived conservative sensibilities. No person his age would ever use a word like narcomania with a straight face. Don't fall for it.
I'm talking about the church, and I'm not exaggerating. Even a place of spiritual refuge can become a magnet for all sorts of dopeheads and burnouts if left unattended.
Dopeheads! Burnouts!
Well, I'm sad to say, that's exactly what happened. Sad because we were just about to put Martinez on the map with one of the maddest dance clubs in Jamrock. Nah, strike that, in Reversholt.
Strike that! The word!
And sadder yet, because the dopeheads and burnouts holed up in there were the worst kind.
He leans back a little, watching you with a steady, serious gaze, letting you imagine just how bad those dopeheads and burnouts really are. Good. This calls for an opinion. You're an expert in those.
Yes. And the worst part is, they're also spooky. I was hoping you would be the judge of that, officer. All I can say is, their spookiness is the kind that keeps us from restoring this church into a community centre and a place of spiritual refuge.
Also, they don't eat or clean the building. Shit's gonna collapse. People just wanna spin tapes without them spooking it up. Place has bad signs. No one can dance like that.
Thank you, Egghead. So you're gonna look into it, right? It should be a police matter. Getting them out. Whatever spooky stuff they're doing, I'm sure it's not what the Ecclesiastes meant their property for. All right, man.
Andre's obviously very happy you took him seriously. The whole tent is. The boys...
I did ask Noid to install a measure against more drifters wandering in. It's a temporary fix, just something to contain the situation.
I had to do it in an hurry. Not my best work, but it should hold for a while.
Of course. Noid, give the...
All right.
You sense the trajectory of the little piece of metal and plastic. The object makes a small ringing sound as it approaches. Just the tiniest chime to your left. Ka-ching! The key hits your palm. The speed freaks nod to you approvingly. The young man with ribcage-shaped suspenders looks at you, standing there, with a goofy grin on your face. Feels nice. It would feel a whole lot less nice had you dropped them, or worse, got hit in the eye with them. Good thing that didn't happen.
Not long, like a week maybe? I'm super sure they're alive. I mean, come on. I'm at least 90%, maybe 85% sure they're still alive. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I guess it wasn't very hardcore of us to just lock them in like that.
Me too. I shouldn't have that kind of power over another person. I'm not the one with the violence monopoly here. You are.
Not long, like a week maybe? Okay, not long.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
Sure, man. Tell us what you want to know. Let's do it. Truth is, I don't really know. None of us do. I don't even know how many there are. All we've seen are glimpses. Well, there's also the machinery.
This machinery is of the deeply mystical variety.
When I first scouted the place, back in February, it was abandoned, empty. Took some time getting the crew together. So about 2 weeks ago, we came here hoping to set the stuff up. Suddenly, there are all these strange machines lying around in there.
One of them has wires running into bowls of water. Wires into water. Never seen anything like it.
Andre, tell him about the feeling.
Oh, and it felt like there was something in there with us, watching us from the dark.
No, the other one.
Which other one? I'm not as in tune with my emotions as you are, Egg.
Felt like silence. Awful silence.
Not exactly. We've just seen someone who we think is a woman go in and out of the church. A couple of times. And we felt someone, or something, eyeing us inside. But that's kinda it. Like, you aren't alone, you know?
It wasn't quite human, if you know what I mean.
Not human, as in a ghost. Do you know what he means?
It was this dark shape climbing upside down along the ceiling, like some kind of crab man. Yeah, you know, the way it was climbing up and around the ceiling, like a crab.
It was stalking a cell, exhibiting ambush behaviour.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I didn't personally see it. Estelle was alone that time, but I believe her. If she comes out running and says there's a crab in there, there's a crab in there.
You should ask her about it, but be nice. Don't tell her you don't believe in the crab.
There probably is no crab man. Don't let them draw you in with this nonsense.
You should talk to Noid about that. I just got a distinct burnout and dopehead sign from them. Probably jacked up to some snuff station too. Probably, very likely. Well, honestly, I can't, but I am.
This is a below-feeble attempt at avoidance. Basically, he is attempting to weaponize idiocy.
Hey now, I'm 70% sure they're substance abusers. Don't let all that technology fool you. Where do you think the drugs come from? Sure. What? Oh yeah, that's a meteor name for the
If you don't know what the founding party is, there might be a way to mask it with minor demagoguery.
Come to think of it, I've never really looked them up, you know? I can't give you a precise definition, but they're a very powerful religious organisation. And they have roots in ancient mass society. And they're the custodians of the Pericarnassian church. Plus, they anoint the innocents. They, like, made the innocentic system, no? Totally.
The Pericarnassian church is about love. And Nordic music is about love. I got love for my Pericarnassian posse. Love is the relay out of death. We dance. Love is hardcore.
Unity.
Unity.
Make some noise for my Insulindian posse.
You feel it, the anodes and the cathodes coursing through you. Your big toe starts tapping along to the bass, as if testing the waters.
Oh yeah, it can.
He's coming around. You're getting it.
Feels good.
That's pretty downbeat. I think I speak for all of us when I say we expected the law to be more open to the idea of love, unity, and the Pericarnassian posse. Yeah, I guess it is. So, you got more questions?
The one with the large head is still looking at you, nodding his head, waiting.
Yeah, let it out! Let the disco happen! Bring the disco into this world!
Yes. What? Yeah, good to have, bitch to carry. When I first scouted the place, I did some reconnaissance. I'm not sure the church even has running water. Oh. It's the one they sell at the fuel station. The what now? Oh, the old Ultra. I have a major sinus infection, stuffy nose. We all do. Shit's all blasted up. Winter, can't even breathe. Yes, that's all Nosefed's doing. Without the noser, I'd be drowning in shit right now.
Nosefed is the shit.
Yes. What?
He nods enthusiastically, no doubt a little relieved. Okay, so the Speed Freaks want to start a club for dance music. That much checks out. Youths like music. You feel as though you might have liked music more when you were young, too. Indeed. So one of them came upon the abandoned church. They want to turn it into a club for dance music, but agents of narcomania have overrun it. You shudder to think of all the narco they must have already consumed in there. Narco is bad. Plus, and it has to be considered, you can't invent the future of dance music in this smelly old tent. Imagine if you had the church. That settles it. Analysis complete. Their story checks out. It still feels as if this didn't quite go as it should have.
As always, we'll be right...
A young man with peroxide blonde hair holds up a Harman Walshi tape player, as though you're supposed to be sharing some tremendous evangelical secret.
Hardcore! Hardcore! Hardcore to the mega! Internally coherent.
All-core! All right! Yeah!
He furrows his brow as his very large head traces the sublime invisible movement of the music in the very real air of the stuffy tent.
Hardcore! Ah!
Is it though? But is it? I mean, really?
Feels like you should reply with the very pinnacle of idiocy here, so that things get totally transcendent. But you haven't gotten there yet, so you don't know what to say.
I am the mic enforcer. I am the chicks checker.
Could there have been a right way out of this garden of forking paths, you think?
So you had a talk with Andre, and now you want to discuss things with Noid. Good. It's good you talked to Andre first. Gave me time to get a reading on your sign. Can't we? Yeah. Gotta compare. See if we can align. I suck at socialising, man. Even now, our sign synchronisation is way off. But I'll see what I can do. A sticker? You mean the yellow one? Can you describe it to me?
Interesting. He wants you to describe it, though he already knows what it looks like.
Good, good. What did you want to know? Yes, you're the 23rd person to get it right, and I've asked 23 people. Looks like it's a dead guy smiling to the entire human race. Really? We're all the same. Same eyes, same smiles, same death. He defeated history. We are living in the age of history, and in the eyes of history, we are always already dead. How can we ever smile then? Because history is a lie, and so are its deaths. The present moment and life are the hardcore. The hardcore expels death. Or maybe he's not dead. Maybe he's just really ecstatic about the beats.
He blinks, waiting for the next question.
Simplicity was brought to us by a classical soul artist modernism, but that was a tasteful, harmonious simplicity, right? Well, hardcore is not tasteful or outwardly harmonious. It's a warning shot. This will be dangerous. The echo of man's loss haunting him. The sticker, the clothes, the music, same thing. It is. I guess one could write an entire treatise on the thing. But what for? Nah. Still strongly out of sync. Stage gamma disalignment. You heard me. Weird stuff. Specialised. There was a data processor and some sort of long-wave machinery. Wires going into water. Gives off a spy sign. Or some fucked up Samaran science sign. You know, the kind that goes head first into the supernatural. Nothing's wrong with it. You should definitely be researched. You can still do sick shit with it though.
The sickest? That's perhaps why it should be researched.
Most of it doesn't exist, but there's also stuff that isn't allowed to exist, because the moralists think it's too dangerous for the plebs. Psionic powers, pale-related diseases, pretenders pretending to be human, folk rights, that kind of stuff. The hardcore aesthetic is esoteric. It's not meant to be discussed with the law at this moment.
It's not easy to reach a harmonic resonance of signs without some adjustment.
Yes, further sign matching would do good for us. One way to achieve this would be by getting us into the church.
Heavy wooden doors, more than twice your height, stand shut in front. The lock turns easily. You hear a click as the shackle pops open.
Let's go.
As you do, you hear the echo of the doomed commercial area, its black halls and dusty machines. Then the feeling passes. A great whoosh of air rushes into the dark innards of the church, as though rushing to fill a great vacuum. In the heart of the city, the silence in this part of the church, it's almost palpable. All the shifting matter and shuffling of living things is gone. Nothing seems to exist beyond the church anymore. Maybe if you were to stand in just the right spot, even your footsteps would be completely silent. And then it's gone. Almost all of it, but for the faintest of hums. It seems the sound here is detached from its source somehow, if not blotted out outright. Truly unusual. You can hardly hear your own breathing. You produce a few muffled thumps, after which the silence feels even more. Your voice is barely audible. Not a howl, but the softest of whimpers. The lieutenant points to his ears and shakes his head. Then he leans closer.
Can you hear anything?
The church just has strange acoustics, some engineering trick.
His detached tone conceals how uncomfortable he is. The lieutenant doesn't reply, but you can sense him tense up next to you. The orderly rows of ceiling panels become barely visible, then disappear completely in the darkness of the tower overhead. Just darkness without end. It makes your head spin. Filled with vague shapes of woodwork, the sense of a great height. There's nothing. You're dizzy and disoriented as you see dark and more dark rising.
Officer, what are you looking at?
You see something hanging from the rafters, looking straight at you with dark eyes. Maybe it's possible to talk to it. Is that a man? Looks more like part of the carpentry of the building came alive and is now studying you intently. The Crab Man. The man leaned forward a little, fixing you with a steady, Unreadable gaze. Then speak.
Habitual alcohol use has made you into a scared little pussy, Holmes. But don't worry, everything's gonna be alright. You come to the right place. Here you can receive the mother's love. And when you're ready, she will take your hand and lift you out of the despair at the bottom of that bottle.
This man is obviously a habitual narcotics user. Do we really need to question him?
I'm put off by this religious stuff, he thinks. And maybe the ceiling climbing, too. It's all very hard to square with the lieutenant's own view of reality. Hey, and what was that about the bottle again? You haven't even drank that much lately. Lay off it already. Shish.
Oh yeah, sure. You don't know anything about alcohol use. You got it all under control, Way. I could smell the control all the way over here. Not all of it. I was like you once. You don't know all the havoc Albino is wrecking on your mind and your spirit. Necesita parar, homie.
You know, actually, since we're here, you may want to pay attention to what the ceiling climber is saying.
Don't trust me. Trust the mother. I'm only the messenger, Holmes. This is the Church of the Mother of Silence. You are welcome here.
You have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. Is he just trying to throw you off your game?
The ones in the tent outside, right? I see them. Think they scared of me. Nah, man. They look pretty funny. And I don't harm no one anymore. Anyway. Why not? They wouldn't bother me none. I'm usually way up there, imbibing. Ain't no music on earth that can reach where I go. Might even be nice to have some company.
He said that in spite of himself. He's more attached to the human than he'd like to think.
Other spooker? Oh, esa viejita es muy estudiosa. Don't know, Holmes.
Viejita is grandma?
No, I just call her viejita because of her clothes. She's actually quite young. Or maybe not that young. That's what I said, Holmes. Don't really follow her comings and goings. Just see her typing on her computer now and then. We got different interests. I'm afraid not, Essay. You just have to wait until she comes back, or
search through her radio computer.
Never known myself to be a crab. But if that's the name you got for me, I won't stop you from using it. I always thought of myself more like a flame, flickering along the rafters and beams. It may be that I gotta work on my technique.
That's not the only technique he's working on. Look at those carved sculptures. And is that a satchel of tools over there?
Sure am. Whittling wood used to be something I just did to busy my hands. Now I use those same hands in service of something greater than my own restlessness. It's all just for the mother, man. No need to overthink it. I was in a gang way, but my memories of that time are fading. Most of them are already gone. That's not really the point, I say. You gotta give yourself over to service. Service of the mother, that is.
Do you remember your name, sir?
Tiago's my name, but those syllables don't mean much to me these days. A name isn't just your identity, but also, so to speak, your place amongst your fellows, your place in the world. I ain't got no use for such a place anymore. That's just the thing, Holmes. None of that matters. This is a special place. There's a perforation in the world up there, a way out into nothingness. This church was built around it for purposes of veneration. I circled it, nurtured by the silence bestowed by the mother. One of these days, I'll be pure enough to go drink from it directly. Oh, that's no simple question, I said. She is one who can be painted or sculpted. She is a cavity in the dark beyond sense. She saved me, but I couldn't describe her to you. No one can, Holmes, and no one ever will. I will be incinerated, but not destroyed. Finally, I won with the state of the world before reality began.
That sounds a bit like substitution behavior, no? You know a thing or two about that.
It's not like that at all, man. It's just faith and joyful service. I heard that before, Way, and I know I can't convince you on the spot. But think, when's the last time you woke up from silent communion with a hangover, regretting what you did last night?
There are drugs darker than alcohol circling your system.
She took you for a good spin, huh? Don't worry, bro. That love is but a drop compared to the ocean of the mother's love. The mother will eat all of you and never spit you out. I know it will take time. Don't sweat it. I'm a seraph, Holmes. I sing the mother's glory. I ain't from no Marietti, if that's what you're thinking. And the song I sing is silent as the mother. Hard to say. I think I did some construction work here, back when I still had material worries. Up there, I realized what the true purpose of the church was. Been spending a lot of time here ever since. The past is nothing to me now, Way. It didn't belong to me.
The sinewy figure lingers on the wooden beams, blending into the shadows.
Police raid a while back.
Did you witness it?
Not really, or at least I don't remember much of it anymore. The
A machine stands in the corner, watched over by the figures on the stained glass window. It's turned on and quivering with soft electricity.
Another radio computer. And this time it's already turned on.
These machines sometimes harbor traps, he thinks. Alarm systems and the like. Let's be careful.
We should leave. I doubt this place bears any connection to the case. It's also quite similar to the one we have down at the station. Must be the same model.
The one you saw earlier was the Ream Civic. This is the Ream Prefect, a model number RC7024, equipped with a Fell mainframe and a Ream-compatible interim printer. In white, silver, and apricot faience, the young mother of humanism stands above you. A crack runs across her body. She is impossibly tall, oval-faced and sad, a dark and radiant majesty. This is her innocence, Dolores Day. Cradled in her arms are a pair of glowing lungs, clearly visible from underneath her flowing dress. You should kneel. Cold wind seeps in from the crack in the glass. Snowdrifts cover the floorboards at your feet. Above, you feel her multicolored eyes on you, inspecting you, as if under a microscope. The woman looks down at you standing there. She towers among her followers, architects, laymen, courtiers. There is a sad smile on her lips and a glint in her green-blue eye. Of what? Compassion? Remorse? She acknowledges the passing of someone who is still alive. You. As that useless word passes through your mind, the lieutenant draws an X-shaped cross from shoulder to shoulder. Your fingertips touch your chest 4 times as you stand in the apricot-colored light of the window. Above you, the woman still smiles, her distant smile, sundered by the crack in the glass.
The old woman in the village was right. This must be the DeLorean Church of Humanity in Martinez, or the small Pinewood Church in some records. It's a minor landmark, not easy to find. Most maps misplace it. It was built not long after Ravachol's founding, 300 or so years ago, by first-generation settlers. There used to be 7 stave churches on the coast. Les Sept Sœurs, they call them, the 7 sisters. Only one remains. The rest were burnt in the revolution or used for building materials. We should be respectful here, although the building appears to be deserted. I do not believe we'll find anything connected to the lynching here. Something else, perhaps?
Respectful? Is the lieutenant a follower of DeLoreanism? There it is again. A small pang of guilt. It's time to ask him what happened here.
I have a theory, yes. There was a police raid a while back. I heard the place was shot to pieces. The old woman in the village was being tactful with us when she didn't mention it. She has more respect for the RCM than many around here. Well, your station was involved, I hear, although I can't be sure.
How come the lieutenant isn't sure? Is this confidential information?
Well, your station was involved, I hear, although I can't be sure.
How come the lieutenant isn't sure? Is this confidential information?
3 precincts were involved in the raid, and people say Precinct 41 was one of them. I am pretty sure it was a clandestine operation. I don't know anything more about it, why it was conducted, or who participated. I try not to pry into extra-district matters. Good luck. You will not get information on a confidential operation from your station secretary just by calling. If you really don't remember, it might be better to keep this one forgotten. It happened a while ago. It's unimportant to our business in Martinez now. Yes, we all are. Her name, body, and rule are synonymous with humanism. The laws we enforce are DeLorean in origin. It's not spiritual, it's constitutional. The DeLorean system does not demand faith, only accordance.
The shards glimmer in the dark. You see little pearls of light on the edges of the crack that splits the female figure. Something was written there. Remains of broken letters line the emulsion. What it said, you do not know. Despite the damage you've done to yourself, the title appears lodged in your hippocampus. This is Her Innocence Dolores Day, the innocence of humanism, internationalism, and the welfare state. Perhaps the most famous human being ever to have lived. No amount of Commodore Red can wipe her sad smile from your brain thing. It has survived the deluge and haunts you still, and will haunt you forever as it haunts all men. The highest category of historic individual, an embodiment of the world spirit. In a way, an innocence is elected to office by the founding party, a precedent that has taken place a mere 6 times in the entirety of history. The legal system of the Real Belt is built from the ground up to accommodate an authentic rule should it coincide with our time. An innocence is infallible. The decisions made by one are not decisions. They are inevitabilities. What would have happened anyway? Only accelerated, packed into decades instead of centuries. An innocence is a continuous, compressed event, a sacred human being. It is an honor and a glory to live when one is in office. No, we are alone. 300 years ago, in the wake of the discovery of this Isola, the Insulindian, by explorers from the continent of Muindi, she is, among other things, the innocence of inter-isolary travel and the connected world. Many things, you know she was a woman of the court, the wife of an influential Marchese, and eventually the principal advisor to Irene La Navigateur, Queen of Suresnes, modern-day Sir La Clé, also that she was gorgeous beyond beauty. Draped in ancient sadness, are you sure you want to remember this bit of historic trivia? Standing under a long, slender form like this, dwarfed?
Yes! Big bummer! Boring history! Gotta keep it light, man! Keep it moving! Get fucked up instead!
The past. It's a silo of sadness, fermenting. You should keep away.
Fuck this pain, Bratan! It's unhealthy!
No, you must know. Terribly, women of the court were expected to play both contract bridge and chess sufficiently well to prove an interesting challenge to a man. A simple grasp in matters of philosophy, theology, and science was encouraged. She was, by all means, a kept woman. She made the most of her position in the antediluvian court, a court visited by the most prominent thinkers and artists of the day. In secret, she was becoming the era's preeminent philosopher of the state, a scalpel, a piercing gaze. She was an almost preternaturally magnetic and intelligent individual. To her contemporaries, she appeared out of time, a messenger from the future of the species. We all fell in love with her, head over heels. Even before she was declared an innocence, her influence was tremendous. It was on her advice that Irene Le Navigateur sponsored a number of voyages into the Pale. A costly, often tragic endeavor, ultimately vindicated by the discovery of the new world, the piece of reality you're standing on. She was crowned 2 years after the first expedition returned, setting in motion what is widely considered the greatest era in history, the DeLorean era. Wow, indeed. When her innocence was declared, and the queen she had advised for years fell on her knees before her, she was so overcome with emotion that her lungs started glowing in her chest. Bystanders reported golden filaments lighting the already sunlit chamber around her, clearly visible beneath her dress. That is why the lungs are the symbol of love for the cultures of the Riel Belt. As did we all, the lands of the Mesk and the Occident, and even faraway Supremwindi, altogether 21 of the 40 mundial nations of the time, immediately accepted Innocentic rule, even before her crowning. In a city called Advesperaskit in Vesper Messina, her homeland, the name of the city means evening comes, but it happened on a winter's morning, with the canals frozen and slush falling out of the sky. She was dressed in a white and pearl dress on an emptied-out plaza with the crowd far away. Already, her Theriers, the secret servicemen of the Innocents, were worried about an assassination attempt. Oh yes, she looked like humanity's young mother, a perfect mother, insultingly beautiful. It was as if her face and shoulders and hands were covered in a soft down of underfeathers. You know this well, very well. Midwinter snow was beating the cobblestones around her. A small attaché of officials stood by as her Theriers placed a white gold wreath on her head. The crowning was mostly witnessed by secret servicemen. One of the men in this secret service killed her 22 years later, a young man who had come to suspect that Dolores Day was not entirely human, but something else. Something that had walked in our midst, watching us stumble for hundreds, if not thousands of years, until it decided to interfere. Interfere in the Dolores Day was shot in the chest with a fowling piece 8 times. The man, thought to be insane, said he once touched her and her body had been unnaturally warm, like a furnace, and that sometimes, while on duty, he observed her forgetting to breathe for over 10 minutes. This inhuman quality was witnessed by many others as well, glowing lungs and all. It is commonly attributed to mass hysteria and religious psychology. 300 years ago, in the wake of the discovery of this Isola, the Insulindian, by explorers from the continent of Muindi, she is, among other things, the innocence of inter-isolary travel and the connected world. Terrifying is a term too emotionally charged for your semantic memory, or what remains of it. But terrifying, it's a simple word. She was bad for humanity, and you shouldn't have started thinking about her. You already do. Although she is often considered to be the greatest human being to ever live, there was something ominous about Dolores Day, constantly surrounded by her Theriers. She was the most socially secluded and least self-aware of all the Innocences. Some modern thinkers would consider her a war criminal for the campaigns she waged against the Mesk state. And then there were the resettlement programs. The Mesk state tried to detach itself from Innocentic rule. Parts of the world were experiencing whiplash from accelerating into secularism. Her mandatory education programs and mass resettlement of upstream Marguerite were problematic as well. Dissenters were suppressed by a military force she called the Army of Humanity, suggesting those who fight against it are not part of humanity. She adored chess, yes, but also military war games. Dolores Day often holds a tiny tin soldier between her index finger and thumb in icons such as this. She was also blonde, the blondest woman you have ever seen, with green eyes the color of the Pacific, mare interregnum. Little is known of her Marchese husband. It's as if he vanished from history after completing his role, which was to introduce Dolores Day to court. In conclusion, yes, there is something lonely, paranoid, and even terrifying that people seldom mention, but feel when they think of her. This subtle terror is part of her iconography.
Lieutenant Yefreighter, you've stood there for over 5 minutes. What are you thinking of, if I may ask? She's been dead for 300 years. I am almost 1,000% certain she isn't connected to the case. None of this is, in fact. This church, the coast, this isn't a good place to get lost in.
A metal payphone under a yellow plastic dome. You could use it to call someone, unless you're out of change. You hear the tone. The machine is inoperable. Someone has left an unidentifiable article of clothing on this railing. It smells really bad. It's streaked with dried seagull shit and tangled with pieces of seaweed. A dangling arm suggests that there might be a jacket beneath the crust of filth. It seems likely that it was left in the surf until someone laid it out on this fence to dry out. Unfortunately, that just seems to have stiffened it into a shapeless mass.
Please tell me you're not taking that with you. A clue? You think our suspect is a seagull who's been defecating on unsuspecting jackets?
A poet could write a dozen verses and still not begin to capture the profound vexation in that sigh. You should still take it. The smell. It's awful and familiar. Don't you recognize it? That hideous pungency, that faintly cloying sweetness. Only death smells like that. Something cold wakes in the pit of your stomach. Fear. It is death. It must be. The lieutenant has already brought a handkerchief to his nose. There's some tear, an empty cigarette package, and a crumpled kebab wrapper in the trash bin. 2 empty bottles of Tallulah vodka and a can of black potent porter is all you find. No, there's more in there. Livis strawberry liquor, plus some Pilsner bottles too. Better not pick them up. They seem unhygienic.
A tragedy.
He shakes his head with genuine sadness. Whoever tossed it here was a heavy smoker. The brand name reads Red Astra. You see traces of mayonnaise and ketchup on it, as well as a tomato wedge. The wrapper reads Shish Kebab Revachol. It's no older than a day or two. No mold yet. It's hard to concentrate in the smell. The sea air brings some relief. A man lies on the boardwalk, his limbs bent and neck turned at an unnatural angle. Right next to him is an empty bottle of spirits. In his cramped hand, a chewing gum wrapper. The smell is not as bad as a 2-week-old corpse, but it's definitely heading there.
Hold on. Lividity is faintly pronounced. Whoever this is, he's been dead for 2 days. No longer. We need to investigate.
Another dead body. This is your job. Steel yourself. Calm now. Carefully. Just another day. Just another dead body. Breathe. A man lies on the... He's wearing mud-caked boots, beige trousers, and an old brown leather jacket with a bright blue lining. There are traces of kebab sauce on his chest. You find some sunflower seeds and a rain-soaked library card folded into 2. His jacket feels sodden and heavy under your hand.
Good. We should take a look at that library card after this is done.
The man has fallen through a crack in the boardwalk and hit his head against the metal bench. Coagulated blood covers his black hair. One of his feet is still dangling through the hole. A bad fall. It might have been dark outside. This place is a minefield in the dark. His expression is dull, like the sea behind him. Drops of water shining on his mustache. His eyes, empty and wide, look frightening in their frozen gaze. Height, 170 to 175 centimeters. Curly hair, stout build. Age, approximately 50 to 60. He was confused when he died. Confused and alone, most likely. Overcome with the awful surprise of it all. He was just about to head home. The first step back home proved to be his last. That's what the chewing gum seems to point to as well. There's some dried blood on the metal bench, right where the corpse's head rests. The floorboards are rotten and slippery wet around the hole. An empty bottle lies nearby, a chewing gum wrapper is clutched in his fist. A dried chunk of blood covers the hair at the back of his head. An open wound. It's sticky and cold to your touch. This is what killed him. This is where he came out of himself, drop by drop, when he was unconscious. It took 3, maybe 4 minutes.
I don't see any other major wounds, do you? Seems like the head wound was fatal. It's exactly the shape of the bench.
They screech under your feet ominously. It's hard to say whether the dead man's weight was the cause of the boardwalk to break. It definitely looks fragile. You see waves churning below. Something cracks beneath your feet. He could have easily disappeared into the sea through that hole, and you would have never found him. A .75 liter Tallulah vodka with its cap missing. There's hardly anything left inside.
Tear all around us. I'd prefer if you didn't collect them this time. It's not proper.
True. It feels disrespectful. Grabowski spearmint chewing gum. Green leaves on the cover. The man's mouth is half agape from the terror of the fall. The blackness of death. Stench. You think you see white chewing gum too. Confirmed. Nearly the whole pack is there. Solidified on his lower rear teeth.
He ate the whole pack, right? It's to cover the smell of alcohol before going home. The worst thing is, I've seen it before. Almost the same scenario, even the chewing gum. It's always the same.
The entire boardwalk creaks in the wind as you take a step back.
Looks like one of the locals. He'd have to know this spot to come here. You don't just walk over here. But that's just a lazy assumption. What do you think?
This is an omen, a sign from above. Don't start drinking again.
Well, at least you're not married.
Or, what if you are?
But let's try to not run ahead. For now, all we know is that he's an unidentified middle-aged man found dead on the Martinez boardwalk. Death by misadventure. He slipped and fell through the boardwalk. A truly unfortunate accident. If it wouldn't have been for that bench, he'd be alive. They'll seal this place off after the news reaches the coalition officials. I doubt that they have enough resources to actually repair the boardwalk. Not that sealing it off would keep anyone away. All it does is keep the city council's hands clean. No, I don't see anything that points in that direction. For now, let's treat this case as a simple, albeit sad, accident, unrelated to the murder case.
Agreed. If this somehow converges later, why not? But keep it simple for now.
Oh yes. Some symptoms of acute alcohol poisoning could have definitely played a role here. Severe confusion, respiratory depression, unpredictable behavior. But I think that death arrived through head trauma, not liver failure. What about it? The deceased ate some kebab. It's probably from a nearby place, maybe in the box.
Sometimes a kebab is just a kebab.
It does seem to be a pretty straightforward misadventure, although there's still a question of identifying the body. From where I stand, I can see two options. We either take the case and follow the leads to identify the body on our own, or we report back to the station and leave this for our colleagues to handle. Alright, we should first examine the library card you found. Then we can call the station from my kinema. Let them know we are taking the case.
There's some tear. worn by elements, guards the depot. The wind has blown a sand dune in front of it. The door hasn't been opened in a long while. You see a handle.
It's military, a service depot of some sort. The washerwoman mentioned a depot up the coast. She said it was for moving ammo and cargo across the bay. This might be it.
It may have been used to serve as an aerostatic battleship in the atmosphere, or a fortification, like a sea fort in the bay.
And Mikhail noticed the windows, especially with how there are no windows on the south side. This was to deal with. You officers, come to investigate the historic subtext of West Martinez? I'm Trant Heidelstam. You must be Kim Kitsuragi, right? I was just telling my son about this building. Not a lot of people realize the historic significance here. Very rich in hypertext.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, hypertext. Young Carp and the collection of cultural hyperlinks. Oh yes, so Mikhail. They had to deal with monitor glare, especially in the summer. They still had vector monitors back then. That was 49 years ago. So they didn't have windows on the south wall. No, I can't say that we've met before, but I've heard of Kim, of course. Mikhail, say hi to the officers. Mikhail's a little tired today. We spent all night trying to run Orbis on his radio computer. Have you heard of it? It's a programming language used in Grad. Quite tricky, but he wanted to play this Grad-made adventure program. We've been getting really into Worms lately.
The man speaks in the artificial cadence of a professor, or someone who's been on too many radio shows.
But I assume you're not here for giant worms when there are so many real things to see. Just as I was telling Mikhail before, this is where the coalition landed in 08. We could be standing on what is the most interesting landmark in Revachol West.
This man is your half-brother. You feel it. But why?
Aha! But it's not just any empty old building. What not a lot of people know is, this used to be the R&D department of Felt Electrical. And Felt, which now sells ink cartridges mostly, was once a top dog in the turn-of-the-century cybernetics boom.
Hold on. What's R&D? It looks old and weathered, with seagulls picking apart its stone and metal carcass. Bushy undergrowth has taken hold of the collapsed rooftop. Some kind of bird has set up a nest on a broken windowsill.
Apologies, it's an acronym for research and development. They don't use it anymore. You're probably more familiar with RTD, research and technological development.
Mea culpa. You are not familiar with that one either. This man is a bookhead.
That's not surprising. Only a vestigial ink cartridge and ferrotape manufacturer remains. They started out as a midway electronics outfit in Königstein 2 centuries ago. After an aggressive move to Revachol, Feld became a global player in the emerging personal electronics market of the pre-revolutionary era. Still, Tricentennial was beating them in business machines. But Feld had an ace up their sleeve, or should I say they were developing an ace up their sleeve? I'm mixing my metaphors here. It was here in Martinez, possibly in this very building, that they developed prototypes for a tape computer. An elegant folding mechanism of rollers and ferrotape ribbons, portable enough to be a take-it-home solution, revolutionizing business machines, possibly even bring them to the average consumer. Which is a feat of engineering even today's giants, Rehm, ICN and ZAM, haven't achieved yet. Indeed. What?
The revolution!
Unfortunately, their moonshot project never made it to the market. Feld's move to Revachol backfired. The revolutionary government liquefied their assets and expropriated those very advanced prototypes, possibly from this very building, or one of the adjacent ruins. All of this was built by Feld, even the boardwalk. Wild Pines built Martinez proper as a resort for their middle management. Feld built this side of town for R&D. Yes, they even built a pleasure wheel, but that got destroyed in the war.
A pleasure wheel?
Perhaps reminded of a childhood memory. It's clear he would prefer there were a big wheel lighting up the coast.
Yes, to lure in their star engineers. This part of Martinez was nothing but reeds before Feld arrived. They had to make the prospect of living here attractive. It was supposed to become a global center for innovation in cybernetics. But history had other plans. Oh, I'm afraid it didn't end well for the boys. But this story is a bit too dark for little Mikhail here. Now, if you were to ask about tape computers...
He means that the boys got shot by the communists. The boys were bourgeois.
Officer, I told you this chapter of history wasn't on Mikhail's curriculum yet. Let's keep this kid friendly.
The boy looks first at you, then back at his father, confused.
They used them for military communications, but also to write and send out press releases, the most notorious example being Le Décret de Mars. What's the Mars Decree? I mean the radio transmission sent out to news agencies and world governments by the newly created commune of Revachol on the 7th of March in the year 02. It's a beautiful piece of text, actually. A singer-songwriter I know, Charette, called it a love poem to Revachol on her political concept album, Bon Baiser dans le Lind. You should read it. Every local library in Revachol stocks a copy of the decree. I tried to get Mikhail to memorize it. Tried to. Someone was much too interested in worms to be paying any attention.
The kid takes a peek at the green and silver worm on the cover of the book, already forgetting about this part of the discussion.
Actually, no one knows. No one even knows what a computer made entirely of tape would look like. But word has it, they were very elegant, exquisite, alien-looking turn-of-the-century hardware. 10 years ago, I did a little freelancing, I guess you could say. I was a special consultant for an exhibition at the Womty Dumpty Dum Center in Vredefort, Oranje. It raised the same questions, and we had lengthy discussions with Paul Ockerman, who was head curator at the time. This was before the twins Keith and Guy Hughes joined the team, trying to...
Wait, did he just say Wumpty Dumpty Dum Center? He did it. He said Wumpty Dumpty Dum Center, like it's the most natural thing in the world. What the hell is a Wumpty Dumpty Dum Center? And who the hell are Keith and Guy Joost?
The Womty Dumpty Dum Center for Contemporary Art. The exhibition itself drew on Lagerman's notion of memory, and so there were some parallels. That's why the head curator, Paul Ockerman, chose to... In fact, I'm not. The Womty Dumpty Dum Center is a place you can visit if you're ever in Vredefort and are ever in the market for an exhibition space / contemporary art research center. But perhaps I should return to the tape computers. As I was saying, the device itself was very elegant, fragile even. One could write directly on the tape using a special chemical solution. The machine would then analyze the handwriting, perform operations, and project output onto a white screen. It was a beautiful, delicate thing.
Made of black film and folding tape structures.
Very, very cool. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to this precious device. But so they did. The felt playback experiment vanished into the fires of '07. Yes, the official name of the prototype. Some sources report it as the felt playback experience, but those are incorrect. Who knows? Maybe it was an accident, or maybe they didn't want the technology to end up in the wrong hands. Either way, they're all gone now. All 3 versions of the prototype. Nothing but debris and ashes remain inside that building. But of course, what else? I do have some money, yes, but that's not what's really important here.
No, I mean, come on. You need the money. If it's not a thing, he can give you...
Of course, Detective. I wouldn't have assumed anything else. Matter of fact, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the Vespertine Department of Justice has published a rather interesting paper on the criminal profiling in former socialist states. Have you read it? If not, then you definitely should. If not for tips and tricks, then just for theoretical curiosity. Anyway, that's just a little something that sprang to mind. You would know, thanks to you for having me and little Mikhail here to pick your brain. A very interesting conversation indeed.
Pick your brain? If anything, this was rather one-sided. He did the talking. Whatever. Fairweather T500. Remember that weakness you were looking for in the ceramic armor? Like, maybe it can only stop small, fast projectiles, but a large, slow-moving pry bar would shatter it? Or, if I run an electrical current through it, maybe it will melt. Or, personal favorite, frequency something something radio weapon? None of that would work. You need to shoot the part of the enemy that doesn't have Fairweather T500 on it, because the armor itself is invulnerable. Good news is, so are the armor pieces on you. You see, a once bright mural towering above you. The signage has peeled off over the years, but you can still make out Feld Electrical R&D. A slogan used to intertwine with the loops a long time ago. Now, only a shadow of peeled letters remains. It says, tomorrow is just a whisper away.
Looks like tomorrow never came.
The remaining windows rattle from a strong gust of wind. They're covered in a thick layer of grime. They must have been like this for 40 years. Dripping water falls from a high place. All you can see is the shadow of a collapsing staircase. There's rust and corrosion on the bars. They're foaming with it. And a small layer of white salt from the sea.
No, I won't even try. I had a partner once. They called him Eyes, because he had to show me things. It's that bad.
This partner of his, Eyes, things didn't end well. It saddens him to say his name. Don't even ask. He wouldn't answer. Maybe. A scattering of bullet holes is spread across the cracked wall, reaching from one corner to the other.
Correct. The density of the bullet holes is unusual, even in a general average bullet hole frequency in Martinez sense. Meaning, this is a lot of bullet holes. Looks like fully automatic rifle fire. Something you don't see these days. The manufacturing and sale of automatic rifles was curtailed after the revolution. The destructive power of such tools proved to be too much. We do need to retain some humanity in this world.
A row of ghostly shades stand facing the wall. There are many of them, a dozen at least, their heads lowered and eyes blindfolded. It's quiet, no sound, no movement. 10 meters away, other shades are lined up in an orderly manner, automatic rifles primed. A gust of wind blows by. The coats of the firing squad flap slowly in the breeze. A single person stands on the side. A long time has passed since the moment of this fusillading. Rain and brine have since washed all the blood away. Not a trace remains. The abundance of bullet holes leads to two options. Either an inordinate amount of executions were performed here, or they did not use a conscience round, where only one soldier has the loaded rifle. Looks like this was a mass execution with everyone fully armed. A host of men, probably in everyday clothes, ragged from the conflict and covered in dust. They were not sitting, a common practice for executions in some nations, as demonstrated by the height level of the bullet holes. They stand, facing the wall. It's impossible to discern any details about their personality or background. Ordinary people, familiar, each and every one of them. Comrades, the forsaken, the wretched, who tried to rise against the horrors of the world. 7 men in combat uniforms and dark coats, holding automatic rifles aimed at the people. Soldiers from some side, but from which one? The commandant, the one who gives the order. Machine gun fire crackling through the air, the lights of the muzzle flashes dancing on his face.
I don't know. I don't know who died here, lined up beside that horrible wall. It could have been any of the parties involved in the revolution. Perhaps the ones executed here were the loyalist conservatives, killed by the communists at the start of the Civil War. Or it could have been the communists, put to death during the last stretch of the conflict by the coalition forces.
Remember what Trant Heidelstam said about Veld?
Another likely scenario.
Or maybe...
Yeah, it's very unlikely the coalition forces were the ones who died here. They were always the last ones against the wall. To be honest, if a coalition member was anyone in this situation, it was a commandant, the superior giving the orders.
A cold sea wind blows away the figures.